Yes, I can hear
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
you. Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Yeah.
I took up like a project this week for painting my living room, and it's like the worst, absolutely the worst. I've never done anything this annoying and tedious.
Yeah.
Um, so just kind of to start off, like, so you do a lot of work with Combat Jiu Jitsu, right?
Yeah. Like Combat Jiu Jitsu, and EBI and stuff as well.
Okay. So what do you do for them?
That's such a weird question. People ask me that, and like, I don't know what to say because I do so much. I handle everything with the athletes. So all the promo stuff that you see that needs to get put out, I'm in charge of getting that footage. So I don't do any of the production stuff, any of the editing, any of that.
Hmm.
But I'll make sure they send their headshots, their logo, their video interview, their training footage. And it sounds simple,
So you
but
just get
getting to
stuff done.
people, huh?
You just basically get stuff done. That's your job.
Yeah.
Get stuff done.
And I book all the flights, I handle the hotel, I handle some transportation stuff. I'm responsible for the weigh-ins. I'm basically responsible for making sure everybody knows everything that's going on and what to do, where to be,
Hmm.
stuff like
Gotcha. How did you like get into that? Was it something that like you studied that kind of work, or was it just because you kind of went and got into it through the competitive circuit?
It was definitely through the competitive circuit. I didn't study this at all. I didn't learn any of this until it was all happening, and I taught myself pretty much everything. I've had some people that I could ask for stuff, but basically, do you know who Victor Davila is?
I do not.
Okay, well, he's one of like Eddie's closest friends, one of Eddie Bravo's black belts,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and Victor was training at Big John's at the same
Hmm.
time that I was at Big John's. He was only there for a little bit, but I like the timing because I was working a lot of jiu-jitsu tournaments at the time, just
Hmm.
like ring coordinating or scorekeeping. And I heard that he was doing an event, not even from him. Just somebody said that he was doing an event. So I reached out to him on Facebook and just asked, like, oh, hey, I heard you're doing an event soon. I work a lot of jiu-jitsu tournaments. I'd love to be part of it.
Hmm.
So, we met up for coffee, talked about what his plans were and what he was looking for. And then I was just doing some basic stuff and I was just obviously volunteering from the very beginning. But
Right.
then it turned into, I was able to quit my full time job and just focus solely on events for the
Mhm.
last 3 years.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. That's one of those things that like people kind of dream about, to be able to do what you like for a living.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing how like timing is everything, right? Like you just end up in the same place as someone else, and then like showing a little bit of initiative on your end too, and then you kind of got into that position. How did so like for people that don't understand what combat jiu-jitsu is, can you kind of explain like what that is and like what the rules are involved in it?
Yeah. So combat jujitsu it's nogi. And it's like you just add palm strikes. So it's similar to pancration, if
Okay.
you know what pancration is.
Hmm. Yeah.
People call it slap. So if you slap somebody, you can use this part, your fingers, but you could also palm strike them.
Hmm.
So basically, once one opponent is down, you're allowed to palm strike each other. Only one person needs to be down, not both of them.
Okay. So how hard are these palm strikes coming in? Like as hard as punches, or is there like are they more of an annoyance, or are they like can you knock someone out with palm strikes? Is that how it
You
works?
can knock someone out. Yeah, we've had two TKOs. One TKO just happened in our November 29th event, the
Hmm.
lightweights. One, who was it? I think it was Wagner Hocha against Nathan Orchard.
Hmm.
And yeah, so Nathan got TKO'd by Wagner. Sorry, Nathan.
Hmm.
But the palm strikes, it just depends on the person because, again, if you use your fingers and you're just trying to slap or be annoying, yeah, that could work. But then there's been so many competitors after the events that show me their palms, um, and they're like all bruised up
Hmm.
and swollen and blue and purple. And So it just depends on the person, and I've seen some bloody faces, I've seen some black eyes and stuff after the event,
Mhm.
so you could get somebody who just uses it to kind of be annoying and open up positions, or you can get someone who knows what they're doing and how to strike, because if you hit with your knuckles, you get worried about breaking your hand, right?
Right.
But if you hit with your palm, I think just structurally, you're not as worried about breaking it, I don't know,
Mhm, mhm.
but
Yeah, well, it's interesting, you mentioned pancreation because I remember years ago, Boss Rutan, like when he was there, everybody said he developed like this way that who would strike with the palm that would come down
mm,
basically as hard as a punch would, and so
yeah,
like that really like elevated, his game, and it's like that. It does sound very similar to that. So
yeah.
so just to kind of, I'm going to come back to this topic, but just to kind of get us started, like with you, like how did you get into like grappling and, jiu-jitsu in general?
Well, from the very like from high school-ish, I don't know why, but I was just like, "Oh, I wanna see how I would do in a street fight." Because that's, like, all I knew. I didn't wanna aggressively attack anyone, I just was curious how it would go, and
Hmm.
then I heard of gyms and stuff, so I went to one and walked in, and I pretty much I mean, it changed everything, you know? I never left. Well, I mean, I guess I did leave, I followed my coach, but I never left the sport.
Hmm. Hmm. And so you were competitive as well, like competed in tournaments and such, and
Yeah, I used to compete a lot actually. As a white and blue belt, I
uh-huh.
would be competing, I think, because I used to be a super nerd and like count all of my matches and my stats and know my submission rates and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But so I used to compete like in 24 tournaments a year.
Mm,
And yeah, at white and blue, and then at purple I just started getting a lot busier with work. I still competed, but it was just harder.
sure, sure.
Um
Real life gets in the way. Yeah.
But yeah, and then actually 2 years ago today, because it pops up on the memories, I competed in EBI. I
Okay.
lost my first match, but yeah, I competed in EBI. I was a purple belt.
It happens. That's the process of learning, right? Like you gotta lose a lot of time. Very rarely do you get people that are just like from the get-go, they just start winning, it takes a very it takes, I think it takes circumstances because you have to be matched up with the right people when you're fresh and don't know anything to and then as you learn, you can keep winning, but that's rare. Usually like that never happens. It was
Yeah.
interesting that you mentioned about keeping up with being a super nerd. I remember when I was wrestling, and so like I'm originally from Russia, so I have like kind of been grappling for a while, and when I was wrestling in school here in the States, a lot of guys would like wear pins on their bags, and I was like, what are the pins for? It's so weird. And then I realized what it was. It was like every time they would pin somebody in wrestling, they would put a pin
Really?
on their back. I was like, wow, that's that's serious right there. So that kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Sorry, go ahead. I
That's
didn't hear
funny.
you. Yeah.
I see
Uh,
they really keep track.
yeah, it gets like that. Like we had a guy that was, it's like people get very cerebral about it. And I understand it because it's kind of like you're almost like a fan of yourself in the sport at the same time. It's kind of like how I get when I watch like MMA. It's like I know people's stats and who they are and what they've done
Yeah.
if I'm into it, and they're just happen to be in the same, in the sport as they're doing it. Um, but yeah, it's so like about the combat jiu-jitsu, I was interested if what you thought as far as like its application to like mixed martial arts in general. Do you think that's like the best case scenario? Because and like I know a lot of people, especially with Khabib and a lot of like some of my countrymen coming through now in the UFC and Bellator and others, that sambo is like combat sambo is like a big thing that people point to kind of be like it's a good transition because there's a lot of punches, grappling together. So it sounds like combat jiu-jitsu is similar like that. Do you feel like that's a good thing to get into if you're going to get into MMA as well?
Yeah, I think it's a good transition if you're looking to get into MMA, or if you're in MMA but not wanting to do MMA but still have a little bit of strikes,
Hmm.
because you get used to getting hit, and it's so different than just like training it at the gym, because your training partners aren't going to try to hurt you, whereas in the competition they're trying to hurt you. So it's just a good stepping stone. Like instead
Mhm,
of looking at, oh, now strikes are allowed everywhere, at least you know they're only allowed on the ground.
mhm.
So you can kind of focus on your jujitsu also and
Yeah,
know that it's gonna get to the ground. Because we also have a get down rule. So you can't, it's not just gonna be like 10 minutes of wrestling. You have to be mostly on the mat doing grappling, like jujitsu grappling, not just stand up grappling.
gotcha, gotcha. It's interesting because a lot of times when I see like guys in MMA, if they're strictly jujitsu, like they just come straight out of jujitsu. They haven't like done any kind of like striking. I mean, obviously they've done some to get into these organizations, you know, but you can tell. I mean, that's their thing, right? And it's like if they get hit, it totally changes even their grappling game, right? Like, have you kind of seen that?
Yeah, we've seen that. I mean, there's guys that are high level black belts, but they're just jujitsu people, and they
Hmm.
think that their jujitsu will be, good enough to prevent them from getting hit. And sometimes that's the case. Like we had Tom Halpin win featherweights earlier this year in March, and he says that he won. I don't like remember every single second of it, but he says that he won the whole
How
thing
dare you?
without throwing a palm strike at all,
Oh wow,
and he
okay.
submitted all of his opponents. Yeah, so you have guys like that, but then you also have um, guys that don't think about their positioning as much, and then they end up taking damage or getting hurt or whatever it is. Because a lot of the MMA guys, like you can't focus on too many things at once. You can't be an expert striker, an expert grappler, an expert wrestler. I mean, you
Mhm.
can, but it's kind of rare. So in MMA, you have like some well-rounded guys that are probably better at striking than somebody just starting to train combat jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And so you see those types of MMA guys go against really high level black belts and the match could go either way.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think, as far as MMA is concerned, do you think it's better to be well-rounded? Like, I'm trying to think of somebody that's like well-rounded, like John Jones situation, or do you think it's better to be like an expert in one particular thing and just kind of know some other things as well? Like it could be, situation there.
I think that it's like kind of a middle ground, but if I had to choose one, I would lean more towards being an expert. Just because if you're just mediocre in everything, maybe you can't finish someone in
Hmm.
certain ways, but if you're at least an expert in one area, then learn all the other areas and try to get the fight to where you want it to be, like to that expertise area that you have. That's what I would do. Like when I first started training, initially I was planning on doing MMA. I wanted to like actually have fights and stuff.
Hmm.
But after like training like that for 2 years, I wasn't really getting good at anything. So I decided at the time I was saying I'm just going to get my purple belt and then I'll start thinking about MMA, but I just never did MMA.
And you just you just decided to roll with jujitsu all the way
I
through.
got old.
You got
Yeah,
old, yeah.
I
Oh,
got old. I don't want to be getting
um,
bopped around and have my head rattled and stuff and get these freak injuries that yeah, you could be really good, but like pretty sure Anderson Silva didn't prepare to get his leg snapped in half by
ooh.
throwing a kick.
How about that? How about that break? I mean, I've seen some nasty stuff, right? But it's like that was ridiculous. Oh my gosh. I'm just
So it's stuff
remembering
like
it.
that.
Huh?
Mm-mm. So it's stuff like that. I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
interested.
Yeah.
I'll listen.
As many times as it turns out, like where people just walk away with a couple of bruises and no big deal, there's just as many times where people walk away like just really battered, it's rough. Yeah, like I was kind of in a similar situation as far as like pursuing more competitive combat sports because I was like, well, what age am I? And I asked myself like, and how long is it going to take me to be really good? And then how much damage am I going to take? And I was like, yeah, that's not going to work for me.
Even the brain damage, like all these articles were coming out about just brain damage that fighters were having, and you can kind of see it. You can see
Hmm.
it in the way that those fighters will talk or look or carry themselves, and yeah. For something that would just be for fun, that's not like a risk I'm willing to take.
Right. They were there was an article out. I don't know if you've seen it. I know you're very busy, but there's there was an article out that said even body shots damage that give you CTE. Like even the jolt from taking a body shot, like where your head like bounces, because you know even though you're not getting punched in the head, you're taking such a blow to the body that it kind of convulses you forward and backward, and it causes like over time, you know, it can cause damage. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm assuming that combat jiu-jitsu is out of the question for you as well then.
Oh, 1,000,000%. When we were in uh the last event, November 29th in Cancun, they were doing a women's qualifier for our event that's coming up December 20.
Hmm. Oh.
And it's 125, so I can, I'm underweight.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then they only had 3 girls and I was already there. So they're like, "Megan, do you wanna jump in and make it even?" And I was like, "No, thank you." And then the first match wasn't a lot of strikes. So it was like, "Okay, yeah, I still don't wanna do it, but, it's not too bad."
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
the next girl comes out, the girl that won, my god, she, like, destroyed one girl's face was whole bloody or all bloody. The other girl had lots of bruises and black eye, I think, and oh no, for sure black eye. Like it immediately swelled up and bruised during the match. And I was like, yeah, that would have been my opponent, and I'm very, very, very happy.
Yeah,
I
I'm sure
get
you. I mean, I'm sure you would have submitted them. You know
I
that.
don't know. I don't know because we've done MMA nights at my school, Peterson Grapplers,
Mhm.
and so it's not like really heavy striking. It's just like some MMA gloves, and once you guys get to the ground, you can throw some punches. Not hard though. Um, I did not do well in those. I did not do well in those.
So like I think I saw you on one of the videos. I believe it's the same I believe I'm subscribed to his channel, and in the
Oh.
video he said that you were and I don't know if it was just something to say or it really is true. He said you were a wrist lock queen. Do you like wrist locks, or is that is that just something he said?
Um, I get into these modes where there's like one move that I want to hit from every single position, so I'll go for
Hmm.
it all the time. There was a period of time where I was going for wrist locks a lot from everywhere and finishing them.
Hmm.
I haven't gone for them as much, except on like particular training partners where that's like all I have. But yeah.
Yeah, that's it's amazing. Like speaking of like those kind of auxiliary, I guess you could say, joints like the wrists and ankles and so forth, how the game in jujitsu and by trade, I'm not like really a jujitsu guy. I'm more of a wrestler, that kind of but you know, I know a little bit here and there. And then it's just amazing with the history as far as like in the past, how it was so like looked down upon to yeah, to do like any kind of like ankle lock or work on the legs at all. And now it's like that's all that people do. Donna Hurden and all his guys, and then now like a lot of MMA is going into that. Like it's just becomes
Yeah.
it's almost like when the pendulum like swung the other direction now. It's like that's the only thing that people focus on is legs.
Yeah, and there's like schools that have leg lock classes, and it's interesting, but it's also like because no one trained them for so long, there's no knowledge of them even at higher levels. Like when was it? I think it was 4, 5, 6 years ago, something like that. One of my friends and I went to a seminar, and my friend is a black belt, and it was Gary Tonan's seminar, I think, at 10th Planet, Costa Mesa, something like that.
Hmm.
And Gary was showing like heel hook defenses.
Hmm.
And at the time, like heel hooks were so taboo that most people like didn't know how to defend them, even at black belt, because if you're just competing IBJJF or like the traditional Brazilian tournaments, I guess it makes sense. Why are you spending time learning things that you're not going to be using at all, I guess?
Hmm.
But yeah, so my black belt friend was like, "Yeah, this is my first time ever learning heel hook defenses."
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
crazy to hear because that's such a that's like that's such a vulnerable part of the body, like your heels and your wrists and all that. Like they're so available and so vulnerable, and it's like the people didn't even concentrate on that. That's and what was I gonna say? That's also how like you can get somebody who is hasn't trained that very long, and like your friend is might be a black belt. It might be in that kind of situation where, I'm assuming it's a she. I don't know. Maybe it's a he. And
It's Lance Glenn.
it's what?
His name's Lance Glenn. I'm gonna go make fun of him for it.
I'm sure he's gonna love this. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and like put this on a clip. But yeah, and so he's might be facing somebody, and he's so skilled. I'm sure as a black belt, he must be very skilled. And then he might be facing somebody who's not, hasn't been in the game that long, and be submitted. That happened all the time back in the day until like now the people are starting to kind of catch up. So it's real interesting. One other thing that you mentioned, I thought I would discuss was that you said how why would you practice something that is not like something that you're going to be facing in like tournaments, which makes sense, right? So it kind of brings me to like takedowns in jiu-jitsu. Like the takedowns aren't really like practiced that much. Maybe better than I would. Like, is it how is takedowns like done in a like a regular jujitsu like academy? How's that taken? No pun
Um,
intended.
so I've actually trained at a lot of different schools.
Hmm.
Um, just I like to visit friends or whatever, and my coach is very confident in his coaching abilities. He knows I'm loyal, even if
Hmm.
it's not me. He knows like if his students go train elsewhere, like it's good, right?
Hmm.
So I've gone and trained at a lot of different schools, and mine is definitely not traditional. Mine is more MMA focused, more wrestling focused because he's a wrestling coach too,
Hmm.
and we only do nogi.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's just not a very traditional school. So he does
Right.
teach us takedowns a lot. I'm probably like one of the only people that pulls guard just because I'm lazy, but I need to work on it. But yeah, so we do learn takedowns at Peterson Grapplers, but a lot of other schools they start on their butt or they start on their knees or they don't go for takedowns. And I don't know, then when you get to tournaments, you hear coaches saying like, look for the pull is there, the pull is there. So they're just so focused on like getting a good guard pull and
Hmm.
not as focused on doing a takedown, which there's a lot of girls, or I'm talking about girls because that's who I compete against, but
Of
there's a
course.
lot of
Yeah.
competitors who that really works for. Um, and you see some people get into some funky, weird stances when they're trying to prepare for a guard pull. You see like their butt
Hmm.
all the way in the air. I don't know, it's just funky looking. But I think over time, people did start focusing a little bit more on wrestling because with being at so many tournaments, like a lot of open tournaments as well, I have seen more wrestling.
Hmm.
Before it was pretty much just guard pulling from guys and girls. Yeah, some people did takedowns, but just predominantly guard pulling. Whereas now I'm seeing a more healthy like mix.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely there's something to be said about people that can pull guard and submit you, from the bottom, and that there's a lot of that. But if you get like, I remember out when I went to, I think it was my first jujitsu class, and they a guy told me like we were talking in between rolls, and he said, and I've already wrestled for a little while, and he told me if a good wrestler can nullify like your ground game from the back, because if they're aware of the submissions, that's the only thing. Like they have to be aware of the submissions. Outside of that, like if they're aware, they can nullify the ground game from the bottom. And that kind of stuck with me. So you think about some guys that are so just dominant on top. When they get on top, they're very hard to submit. And it's
Mhm.
like if you're that guy, if you're that girl, that guy, and you can have a good takedown and guarantee that you're going to be on top because your takedown is so good. I mean, that's such an advantage, there.
Yeah, I've been on the opposite end of that. And it's so frustrating looking at like some guys that you're just like, oh, they're brand new. I could get them.
Hmm.
Even if they're wrestlers, it's like, yeah, but they don't know
Hmm.
jujitsu. And then
Right.
they just smash your life away and you
Yeah.
just can't move or do. I mean, I'm also littler, but Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough situation to be in. So I mean, there definitely like is something to be said about working off your back because, like you said, if you're a smaller person, the chances of you being able to get a takedown are like a lot less, right? Like the advantage is on the with the other person. So like you have to work off your back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you when you started jiu-jitsu, like was that like fresh? You've never like did any kind of like high school like wrestling or anything like
Mhm.
that, or that just you just walked in?
Yeah, we didn't have a wrestling team at my high school. We do
Mhm.
now from my coach. He implemented the wrestling program, but I just kind of walked in, no experience at all.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did do karate, I think, not I think, but I did do karate for a little bit. And then once we got to belt
Mhm.
testing, everybody else got their belts and I didn't get my belt and I was sad, so I quit. But that's like my only prior martial arts experience before
Oh my
joining.
gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, you say you just quit, you bounce from karate. Well, it might not be such a terrible thing. Karate now is like not really been proven to do much. So I was, so like I have you notice I didn't mention it until now since you were talking about this, but I have a black belt in Taekwondo. I don't even mention it to people. I don't even say it. I don't even like say I practice Taekwondo because I'm like, what's the point? Like nowadays.
It works with some people, like Leo Machida is a taekwondo guy, isn't he? And
Yeah, because Taekwondo, karate.
some of
Yeah.
those kind of guys, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Leon Machi is also black belt in jiu-jitsu. So like he can do that because he's
He's an
got the
overall badass.
right. Like so and you do see that like right like so now like there's a couple. I mean, Leota's from the old crew, but like you'll see Michael
That is
Venom Page.
okay.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
No. But
Okay. So he's like that point. He's a world champion in like karate, and but now he's Bellator. Like so, he's just destroying people. Look him up, Michael Venom Page, MVP, and he's just dropping people left and right with one punches. And he comes from that point like sparring where you just lunge in and you strike, and then you can lunge out, and he's so fast and long. He's got that John Jones build, you know, and that works, but it only works if you can, you know, avoid like takedowns and you can avoid all that other stuff. If you can't avoid that, then you know you're gonna lunge in right into a double leg. That'll be it. Oh, so what you guys? Where does Combat Jiu Jitsu take place? Like what area of the world?
now it's in Mexico just because can't do it in California. But
Hmm.
I mean, we've actually been trying to get these events in Cancun for a couple of years, I think. So we finally made it happen. And the last event was just beautiful. It was amazing. Everything went really well. The production looked great. Athletes seemed really happy. Staff seemed happy. So yeah, we're gonna be back there in about a week and a half.
Okay,
Um, but we've done events in like Texas as well, but mostly in California.
gotcha. So I guess there's no restrictions in Cancun.
Not that I know of. Not that we know of. I mean, we wore masks and everything. We did have, I forgot the guy's like actual title, but somebody from like the city or something, some
Hmm.
inspector,
Hmm.
just to make
Yeah,
sure we were following regulations. And if you
right.
look at the seating at the event, they were all spaced apart. Um, yeah. So
Are the athletes tested, or that's too much?
they're not tested.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's tough. That's because those all testing all your athletes is gets to
It's
be
so
real
expensive.
expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've done other work involving regular testing, or I've just
Hmm.
heard from other organizations that do testing, like even the UFC. It's just expensive because if they test before they get there, they're flying there anyway. So who knows what could happen. But if you test them when you get there, that means they have to arrive earlier. You
Mm.
have to make sure they stay in their hotel rooms. And listen, if you're trying to corral 22 grown men, it's not
Mhm.
easy. They don't listen to you. So you would then
Right.
have to hire like security, which on some movie sets, they will put everybody in a hotel and then they have security making sure that none of the staff, crew, actors, whatever, leave
Mm.
their hotel room unless it's to work. And oh man, there was some show that I, did a little bit of work for during the
Mhm.
COVID period, and it's like six figures spent on COVID stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of it was also just testing daily
Yeah.
because those things are expensive. So, yeah, we don't do the testing,
Yeah.
but we just hope that everybody, is just honest because at the end of the day, they're going to want to be honest, hopefully, because if some event, whether it's ours or some other event, if some event has some crazy outbreak,
Mhm.
probably a lot of other events are going to stop for a
Yeah.
little bit. So I think
Yeah.
everybody's just trying to do our part so that we can keep this going.
Well, the budget, I mean, to be able to go through the process of doing it the way like the UFC does it, and I don't even want to say it the safe way to do it because it's probably safer. However, I mean, I don't know, like if it actually is as effective as they want it to be. But is the budget would be like double, triple, like you said. I mean, that you're talking about six figures. I mean, smaller shows, can't really afford anything like that. That'd be way too difficult.
Yeah.
So what's the next weight that Combat Jiu Jitsu is doing?
The next one is the female flyweights on December 20th back in Cancun, Mexico. It's going to be an 8-woman bracket
Mhm.
plus 2 or 3 male special matches. One of the male special matches is at what's 185 middleweight, and then the other one's at light heavyweight.
Okay.
And then our next event after December 20th is likely going to be sometime in March. Don't know for sure, but it's going to be the bantamweights.
Gotcha. And where can you see it?
UFC Fight Pass.
Okay,
Yeah, you can
that's it.
watch all of the events on UFC Fight Pass, all of the Combat Jiu Jitsu events. Oops, sorry.
No,
All of
go
the
ahead.
Combat Jiu Jitsu events, all of the EBI events, they're on UFC Fight Pass. You can watch the replay.
That's such a great provision there because it's like now all these events that normally you wouldn't be able to like catch, now you can see them
Yeah.
there. That's pretty awesome.
And it goes all the way back. I don't know if it's to the very first one, but I've seen people post that they've watched like the old EBI events, and we haven't done EBI in 2 years.
Mhm.
Or wait,
Yeah.
old EBI events before 4 years ago. Because I think 4 years ago, June 2016, I think is when we got onto UFC Fight Pass.
Okay, awesome. And so I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. I know you've got some people you probably want to choke out, so I'll let you go ahead and do that. But if somebody wanted to like reach out to you for collaborations, anything else, like can you go ahead and plug your stuff in? I'll add it to the bottom of the video, but just verbally, like what's the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me, I don't give my phone number out,
Well,
but the best way to reach me is,
understandable.
I guess, just Instagram or Facebook, MeganParducho. I also am a licensed real estate agent with Remax. So if you're looking for real estate in SoCal, you can do move with Megan at Gmail. Sorry, move with Megan Realty at gmail.com.
Awesome.
But
Hey,
that,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, Instagram and Facebook are the easiest ways unless you're looking for real estate. I guess you could do Instagram or Facebook, but my email address is movewithmeganrealty at gmail.com.
Okay, awesome. And like I said, I'll add that there. I was going to ask you, real quick, how's the real estate there in California now since COVID and everything like that?
It's actually going crazy.
Like in a
Um,
good way?
yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
a really, really busy time. Normally it's slower at this time of year,
Mhm.
especially during the holidays, but there's a lot of people moving. Rates are really, really low. So this is like the busiest that it's been in a really, really long time. Like I've heard stats of normally around this time, maybe there's from a specific lender, there's 30 closings a day, let's say, and now it's like over 100 closings a day.
Wow. I'm
So
surprised. I'm surprised because everything you're hearing is so negative, and then it's like it's like the opposite curve for you.
yeah, it's interesting in the housing market, but I think it's also because interest rates are so low
I see people
and a
taking
lot of people
advantage.
might be moving out of California for particular reasons. But
Yeah.
yeah, houses are going really fast.
Yeah. I saw Joe Rogan moved his podcast from LA to
Texas, right?
Texas, I believe. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's got a whole setup there. But yeah. Okay. Well, hey, thanks, Megan. Again, no wrists left behind for you.
I'm
So
gonna go to wrist locks today, specifically after this
there you
conversation.
go. There you go. All right. Well, thanks again. You take care. Have a great day. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming
Thanks for
on.
having me.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.